father gotta do? What?
Hey guys, welcome back. If you don't know, this is Japanese Tutor, and we're doing Bishop versus Pawns today. We're going to tackle these endgames and get this knowledge. I'm just going to go right into it, and let's go into my analysis. Bam. Okay. So there are many endgames in which the only way to defend consists of constructing a position impenetrable to the enemy. Such a position is called a fortress, and the method is called constructing a fortress. Now, usually, you hear this a lot, especially when you have a queen versus like two rooks, or a queen versus a knight and a bishop. You want to create like a somewhat of a fortress so they can't penetrate, and that is true in this kind of end games as well. Um, so the author is going to use a term elementary fortress to mean those theoretical positions with minimal material and a king usually placed on the edge or in a corner of the board, in which the stronger side proves unable to exploit a significant material advantage. We have already encountered such positions in the chapter on knights versus pawns, diagrams 2.2 and diagrams 2.4 and 2.5. Here, uh, and also in later chapters, you're going to learn different elementary fortresses, which are important for the practical player. Okay, so this is bishop and rook pawns. Also, I'm going to change the title. Games. Okay. I don't see anything in the chat, so I'm going to refresh. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna do this one more time. Uh, awesome. Great. So, bishop and rook pawn. Sorry about that, guys. If the bishop does not control the rook pawn's queening square, so we are talking about this square here, then the weaker side has only to get his king into the corner. We call that the safe corner, right? So this bishop only goes in the light squares, right? He can never go in the dark squares. So if the king can get over here, he's safe. Black to move plays king g8 with the obvious draw, right? I play king g8, boom, boom, and you're never going to get me off of these two squares. Let's learn the technique of cutting the king off from the safe corner. Let's suppose that it's white to move instead. If the bishop were on f5, he would win instead with bishop e6, right? Because we cut off the king from the corner. Okay, and with black's king on f6, a different standard cutoff maneuver. So let's say we're here. He's on f6 instead. Bishop h5 or e8, cutting him off from this diagonal and cutting him off from this diagonal, right? So he can't go here, he can't go here, he can't go here. So he's cut off. He can't go here because he's going to push. He can't go here because he's going to push. He can't go here because he's going to push, right? So this is the way you win if he's on f6. But in the diagram position, there's only one way to play for the win. If it's white to move. White to move, and you're going to play bishop h7. Okay, bishop h7. And after bishop h7, you're going to play king f7, king d3, king f6, And here you're going to play bishop f5, right? Because he cannot take because you're going to push. And you're also cutting off this square. So he has to maybe go back. Push. Yep, king f7. Great. King f7. Bishop h7. I guess people always repeat that. Also, if he plays, so let's say you play king, okay, let's say bishop f5, and he plays king g, he goes here, well, king f7. Oh, he has king f7 planning king g8. So he plays here, bishop h7. If we play bishop e6 check, then he has king g6 drawing. Right, so you play bishop h7, and then king h6 is a draw. Now, if we relocate the white king to d2, and it can reach the pawn in time to help. f7, king f7, e3, king f6, king f4. Now he no longer has time for, or he can't go to g5 because our king covers g5, right? So now he's totally blocked off from the pawn, and now we're gonna come in and win the pawn. I mean, not win, but uh, get him away from the safe corner. So everything that we've mentioned so far is elementary, yet even strong players forget about these ideas surprisingly often and make mistakes in the simplest positions. I had no difficulty finding examples for the tragic comedies section of this chapter. That's unfortunate. um, Now let's look at a position with paired rook pawns with the king cut off in the corner. And so this is a puzzle by Rouser in 1928. So we're just going to set up this position here. Bishop and pawns. And he did a considerable amount of analysis in this position. Okay, so in this example, it's white to move. And he says that white cuts off and then drives the king away from the corner. Yet still he cannot win. So basically what he's saying is, hey, I'm going to try to drive you away from the corner. This is your safe corner, right? Because my bishop is a dark square bishop. So this is the safe corner for you. But I'm going to try to win. White to move. The defensive method is simple. Just keep the king in the upper half of the board. Then any attempt to remove the a4 pawn would allow the black king to get to the safe corner on a8. So we're going to play bishop d6, cutting off the king. d8, king b7, king d7, bishop c7, king e6, king c6, king e7. All right, and bishop b6, cutting off the king, king e6, bishop c5, cutting off the king here. Also planning to play here later. King c5, bishop c5, king e5, bishop f8, king e6. He has to back up. c5, bishop c5, e6, bishop e5, bishop f8, king e6, bishop d6, king f7, king d7, king f6, bishop h2, cutting off the king here. Also preparing this. h2, king f7, Bishop e5, cutting off the king here. 1, 2, 3 are cut off. This is also cut off. This is also cut off. So he has 3 options right now. Right, so those are 3 the options that are available to him. King g6, king e6, king g5, bishop b2, trying to cut off the board and maybe come this way. Bishop b2, king g6. Almost looks like he's getting checkmated with one piece. f6, king h6, king f7, king h7. So you got to be careful not to stalemate him. King f6, king h6, king h7, bishop e5, king h6, g7 check. And what he's trying to do is he's trying to get all these dark squares over here. He's also trying to keep the light squares with his king and cover these squares so he can't get to them, right? If he so that he can cut off the whole board with the king and then finally get the king behind here and then try to win the pawn and promote. But he's saying as long as we stay on this top half, we should be fine. King h7. Okay, bishop 5 to 7, h7. King f8. King g6. King g8. Right? Remember we said that we're going to try to cut off the king and cut off the white squares with the king. King d6, king g8, king f5, king f7. King g5. He's trying to go to a different diagonal, right? So king g5, bishop f8, instead now covering these lines. King f5, bishop e7. White has managed to drive the king closer to the center, but now he has to keep him from returning to a8. As a result, the way is once again to open the upper half of the board. King e5, king e8, king e6, bishop f8, king f6. If he plays here, then we have the obvious solution, right? So he plays king f6, bishop b4. King g7, and I think this is pretty much an easy win, but let's see. It's white to move, and bishop b4, and let's try to finish this versus the computer. Let's see, can you guys see that? Yeah, and I think we're just winning here. Yeah, the computer gives it yeah. Okay, so we're done with that. Thank you, computer. So now let's see what happens with the king in the lower half of the board instead. Let's play king d4. So let's set up this position. Oops, we have to do a new analysis. Let's set up the position. Let's clear the board. So he said, let's say we play like this instead, and the king is on d4. The pawns are here. Okay. So now he's saying bishop d6, king e4, and he also gives this sideline over here. So let's just start the position over so we can see what the sidelines are. White's move. And so we're going to play bishop d6, king e4. If he plays king c4, then bishop c5. Now he has to back away, right? Because king cannot go here, king cannot go here. So now he has to kind of back away. He has to go to one of these three squares behind him. D3, king b5, winning. Okay, so let's go back. So let's say he plays king e4. King b5, king d5, bishop h2. Wow, that's interesting. I thought he was going to play here instead. Okay, so oops, sorry guys. I thought he was going to play this instead. But maybe king e6 allows him to come back around. Wow. So bishop h2 in this position, cutting off the king, making sure that he can't get on these diagonals, making sure that he cannot get past here. Okay, so king d5, bishop h2, king e6, trying to get back. Catches on a4, king d7. But we can stop the king. d7, king c8, king b6, and we stop him from coming to these squares because the bishop is doing such a great job and we use the king on the light squares. Whoa, guys. Okay, so what you want to do in these positions where you have a bishop on the opposite, so on the opposite corner. So usually I would think that that would be a draw, but you want to take it a step further and say, hey, can I cut off the king first? So the rule is if the bishop is an opposite color, then you can't win that position. I think I might have lost I mean, I think I might have drawn a few positions that were actually winning for me because of this one technique. So hopefully now you with this information, you now have the material or the resource to fight back. And from this variation, we can see how vital the h2b8 diagonal is to the bishop. However, the only way the bishop can occupy it is if the black king gets too frisky. If he follows the above cited rule of the fence instead, then white will be unable to keep the bishop on the necessary diagonal and keep the king out at the same time. Amazingly, it is the last diagram position that examines only bishop g7 check on move 8. So instead of this, bishop g7 check, allowing black to gain a half point by king e4, right? If he plays here, then it's no bueno. He plays king c4, then we play bishop f6, and it is pretty easy, I think. Bishop e7, yeah, okay. But if he plays king e4 instead, is what he's saying. After king e4, uh, then he can play king d6. And now it's pretty much a draw is what he's saying. King f5, bishop e5. Now king g6. Again, not the active king e4, because if he plays king e4 instead, now he has king e6, and now he can keep the bishop on the h2 diagonal, and then also cut off the king with the cut off the light squares. So he should play this move, king g6. And yet, in the final position, it is still quite difficult to demonstrate a win for white. For example, after king f3, wait, I'll move 11, so we are on move 11, king f3. I think this one might be it. Bishop g7 check, allowing black to play king king d6, king f5, bishop e5, but you can't go to f3. Oh, I see what you're saying. After king e6, you have king f3, and you have to play perfectly. King f5, king e3. He must find the exact move. This is the only move said in the text. Bishop b2. That's some stuff, guys. What's the idea here? Let's try to find it. He's cutting off this line, and he's cutting off the light squares. He's trying to get the king behind the pawn, and then maybe protect it later with this, while you have your king a little bit closer. So he says he's not going to go into the deep analysis of this, but he says maybe after king f3. Well, this is just me playing here, but let's say he plays king e3, right? We can just, oops, maybe not this, but whatever. Like even if he plays here, what? Okay, they can just take our bishop, whatever, and then we're in front of the king, and they can never stop us. Okay. All right, awesome. White will try to stalemate the enemy king while keeping him away from the corner in order to force the pawn to go up. If black tries to avoid the scenario, then he must move the king to the corner. Okay. And now we're going to go over a variation of what we just saw. So this is a different type of the same position. Okay. Now the king's arrival in that left hand upper corner is mortally dangerous. Right? To go over here. He will be stalemated and forced to play b5, b4 when the a3 pawn goes to the b file. White to move wins quickly by bishop a5, bishop a5, king b8, king b8, b6. He has two options. b8, b6, king a8. If he plays king c8, we have this, and now he has to play here, and we're going to take, and then it's 1, 2, 3, 4. They're going to get a queen, but we have checkmate on the board. So instead he plays king a8. And on king a8, we play king c7, b4, bam. And we can just play this move after. So here, 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 queen, because they have no moves. So that becomes a queen. That takes the queen. Bam, check, bam, check. And we can get a queen. And we know how to checkmate with a queen. Okay. But it is black to move actually in this position. So white to move just wins. Let's see if it's black to move. And remember, black has to play the accurate defense, but white also has to play the accurate plan of attack. Okay, so you're going to play king d8 here. King d6. King e8. King e6. King d8. Bishop d6. Cutting off the king. King c8. If we play king e8, let's go over this. If we go king e8 instead, then the text says bishop e7. Because of the variation, we're going to take, and then our bishop can just come here and take, and we control the dark square here. Our bishop can control the dark square. Okay. All right, so that's no bueno. So we got to go over here. King c8. Bishop e5. King d8. And it says that actually black loses after king b7. So I want to go over that line as well. Let's just waste a move here. Right. Wait, it's white to move. Sorry. Black to move here. Okay. So king b7 actually loses because of king d6. King c8. There's a little side variation. f6. Bishop f6. King b7. Bishop d8. King c8. Bishop b6. King b7. This king c5. This is okay. So this is what we should consider, that the king has to try to get here, right? So we can try to stalemate them. When we do stalemate them effectively, then we win the pawn and then we can win the game. Okay, so that's basically the idea. Is after bishop b6, got a king c5, king c8, king c6, right? We've seen this before. He has one move. King b8, bishop a5, wasting the tempo. King a7, bishop b6 check, king a6. And actually our king is, we can just play bishop c5 here. And what does he play? King a5, bishop e3. So you play king a6, bishop b6. Can't go anywhere. He has to push, push. Can't do anything. Checkmate. Wow. Checkmate in the middle of the board. Okay, so let's go back to the king d8 scenario. Sorry. So, okay. So in this scenario, king d8 is the strongest move. And just give me a second. Let me check the chat. Looks like everybody is watching St. Louis. Why not King E6? Hey, no problem. It's fine. I got to do these lessons anyway, so yeah, it's cool. I want to get the information out there. OG Norbert, hey, sorry for not responding to your message yesterday. I saw it too late. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, brother. You're here now. That's all that matters. But the chat box is not populating. It's weird. Your messages aren't going into the chat box on my stream. Weird. But I'll fix that later. Just welcome, guys, and hopefully we can get into this content here because this is kind of interesting. Even though you have a bishop, normally I would think such positions are winning, immediately winning, or inherently winning, but now it's weird. So bishop d8. Okay, so let's say flip bishop f6, check. King c7, exclamation point. So hopefully, so what I think it is that, hey, he's not attacking from this diagonal, let's get on this diagonal. If he attacks me from this diagonal, let's get back on the diagonal. King c7, bishop e7, king c6, bishop d6, and b4. Ho ho ho! That is interesting. The idea is that if takes, boom, I'm gonna play here, right? So the idea is takes, I'm gonna push, right? Either you can push b5, I'm gonna take, and then you're gonna take my pawn, or you can come here. I come here. You're gonna protect. Bam, king d5, and then I'm gonna play a1 queen. You got to do something, and then here. Now, if we don't take, if we take with this, now it's a draw because we get to the corner. That's smart. Wow. White can drive the enemy king to the king side and try to stalemate him there. In order to avoid stalemate, the king will have to retreat to the lower half of the board, but that is less dangerous now without the b5 pawn in view of b5, b4 at the right moment, which now becomes a resource for black. Okay. So let's go into some tragic comedies. New analysis. Set up the position. There's some really big stuff going on in St. Louis, I guess. Yesterday was pretty big streaming. There were like 1 billion subs gifted yesterday. It was some crazy stuff on some of the top chess streams. I was there for some of it. It's pretty cool. Black pawn here. Okay. So it's white to move here. And what could have been simpler than e6? King captures f4. So let's go back. So sure, white to move. Okay. e6, king captures f4. He gives e7, bishop d7, and then h6, right? Because he can't catch both pawns. All right, you have king g5. Can't catch both of them. Make another queen, right? So you say that's the simplest way to win this position. But let's see how he handled the position, if you will. Bishop g6. King captures f4. Takes. Okay, and Goodman evidently expected king captures here. And not the king captures here. Okay, now it makes sense, right? You're gonna play h6, and remember the floating pawn rule? So that's exactly what we're going for. The floating pawns. I'm gonna go to h6, and you can never capture, right? Because you can never get here. And if you go here, then we play here, because if you capture, you're not going to be in the square of the pawn anymore. So you have to deal with the respective square of the pawns. So you have to be in this square. But there's also this pawn, right? So if you get into the square, then it's here. And now if you leave the square of the pawn, now boom, and now this becomes the square of the pawn, and you can't get there anymore. It's a really interesting point. So that's what he assumed that he was going to play, but what did he play? And now he played king captures e5 instead. h6. And now we're going to go here. h6. King f6. King c2. Bishop f7. King f7. Try to get into these two squares. Bishop h7. King f6. Bishop g8. Yeah. So the king can't come here. Yeah, this is a draw. Had the king been over here with no pawn, then we could have won this. If there was no pawn here. So let's say he plays here. Let's say he plays it's white to move. Whatever. Let's say it's like this. And we play here. Let's say the position is like this. No, oops, not like that. It's a position like this. And our king, if our king was here, then, or if our king was here, then we would be able to make it to the pawn and save it. But since our king is not here, that was the designing key. And then also, yeah, we can't get there from any one of these squares. It's only from here to here and anywhere in this square, basically. Maybe not the upper, maybe not here. So, yeah. And so this game was drawn. He had the simple win with the e6 and just pushing the pawn, but he wanted to make it complicated. All right, next. Let's go over the next position. And I am going to do another stream later. I have a lot to cover. So don't worry, guys. You're going to get a lot of this information. But just like doing stuff like this is like, whoa, there's so much to chess. Like, I just don't understand sometimes. Okay. So here too, the win is elementary. So it's white to move here, right? King g5, attacking the dark square, sorry. Attacking this is on the dark square, right? King g5, h3, g3, followed by f5, and we're gonna take two pawns. And Gershon in the Bermuda 1989, he chose a different way. So let's see exactly what he wants to play. H3, double question mark, quadruple question mark, H3. G captures H, G captures H. Okay. Bishop, wait, Bishop A6, reasonable. King G5. Bishop catches B7. Bishop catches B7, and now King D7, exclamation mark. So he cannot stop the king from going back there. Right, and we have the same defense as always. Stay on this top half. And then if he ever captures over here, we always have time to get here. So where should black put his king in the next diagram as close as possible to h8, of course? Okay, so like in the next example, let's go over the next example. Although this does have a knight in it. It's a Bobby Fischer game. Fischer versus Taimanov in Vancouver. If you guys want to look at that game. Bishop, pawn. Okay. Where should black put his king in the next diagram? As close as possible to h8, right? So I need to put my king over here. My king needs to get over here. That's obvious. The most accurate way to draw was knight d3. Knight d3, h4. Right? We always have this little maneuver here. f4, king f5. King d6, not caring about it. King captures, bam, and then e4. He cannot stop me from getting there. Okay, so that was the most accurate way to draw. Let's see what Bobby Fischer played. Because as you know, these tragic comedies are Mark Dvoretsky's. They're making fun of really, really strong players, and they're bringing these really strong and talented players back into the mortal realm, saying, "Hey, you know, they're human too. They make mistakes." So he played King E4 instead. Taimanov there. Bishop C8. King F4. H4. And he said, amazingly, the highly experienced grandmaster sent his king off in the opposite direction. So this is a position that grandmasters should know how to draw. But h4, nothing can save him now. As you will recall, the knight has a difficult time with rook pawns. Knight f3, h5, g5, bishop f5. Now the bishop and the king do a great job of dominating the knight. Sorry. Then I can go here, 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 here. Right? And the king covers this square, the bishop covers that square, and this square. So he really only has two squares to go to. And he doesn't really want to retreat because then he can't get back. And what's protecting this is the king. So actually the knight has to retreat because nothing can protect the knight anymore. Knight f3. h6, knight g5, king g6, saying, hey, nothing's protecting you once again. Knight f3, h7, check, king f6, and then if doesn't matter what he does, if he takes, doesn't matter because we have a queen. Okay, and that's easy enough to win. Yeah, Tamainov is such a strong player. Okay, so let's go over one more example. Yeah, let's go over one more example, and then we'll be done for today. So let's set up this position here. Okay. So this is a Polish championship in 1988. So I'm sorry I mispronounced the names, but Dąbrowska versus Lizowska or Lizowska. My Polish is not that good, and if I curse in your language, I'm sorry. Okay. So he played King G1, which is, as we know, is the worst move. What is our goal? Our goal is to stalemate the king, right? He needs to keep the king on one of these two squares. He needs to, but anyways, let's go. King H3. Right? We want to stalemate the king. And we want to keep the king away from the corner. Right? Because he has two pawns. So if King H1, we can just win with this. I think this is winning. Boom. 1, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. The king is stalemated. He plays here. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3. Checkmate. Right? And if he doesn't play there, and let's say he plays King F1, I like Bishop C5, just cutting it off, but he also says that King H2 can also decide it. Makes sense. Therefore, white resigns after King H3. After King H3, white resigns. White had to play, instead of that, he had to play King H2. Black can neither drive white's king from the corner nor put white in zugzwang. For example, King F3, King H3. Bishop C5. King H2. Bishop D4. King H1, exclamation. That's interesting. Oh, and he says not here because then we play here, right? And then you have to push and you get checkmate in 1. So bishop D4 and then king H1 instead. And then that would be a draw. So this is the first installment of the Bishop Endgame series. Thank you all for being here. As you already know, this is your boy, Japanese Tutor. Thank you. If you like the content that you see here, there's going to be more. Hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you know when I'm uploading. And smash that like button. It helps me out. It helps you out. Actually, the more you smash it, the more rating points you get. It's actually a proven fact. Again, thank you guys so much for so much support on all of the platforms, on my Twitter, on my Instagram, on YouTube as well. We just hit 50 subscribers. That's huge for me. So thank you so much. It means that 50 people actually care to watch me. So uh, it helps me out a great deal, boosting my morale to make these videos. So guys, thank you so much. And that's it. And all right. So we're good for right now. We're gonna go into some other stuff.